Welcome to this video. In this video, I would like to explain the 4 main leadership theories there are. So basically what we're going to do is right now, we're going to have a look at the main leadership theories, the ones that are the most popular or have been over times, and then afterwards you can judge which kind of theory matches your point of view the best and which theory you think is the most realistic one. So let's actually start with the first theory, and this one is called the great man theory. And the bottom line of the great man theory is just that great leaders are not made, they are born. Now, in modern understanding, often what we say is that a leader can be made. For instance, and this is my personal perspective, I think that leadership skills can be acquired. But the great man theory basically says there is no way how you can acquire leadership skills. You are born a leader, but if you're not born a leader, you will never become a leader. Now, it is of course possible that you are born a leader, but you never really reach your full potential. But it's not possible that you're not born a leader and at some point become a leader. So as you can probably guess, this is the oldest theory. The great man theory is one of the oldest known leadership theories in the world, and I think it is not very precise, but for you, perhaps, this might sound more realistic than to me. From my personal point of view, I think that the great man theory is a little bit outdated. So in the end, that means if you aren't a leader right now, you will never be. And of course, this is not a very nice thing to say, especially now because you purchased this course. And I'm telling you right now, if you're not a leader right now, you will never be able to be one. And I think, this is just not true. So let's move on to the next theory. After the great man theory, people developed the trait theory. And there are basically 5 traits that the trait theory says has every leader. So the traits of leaders are ambition to lead and strive, honesty and integrity, intelligence, so knowledgeable and intelligence in leading, and then confidence and job-relevant knowledge. First of all, let's start talking about the first trait, ambition to lead and strive. So the trait theory is based on greatness. The trait theory always says that whenever a person leads, he or she is great in what he or she is doing. So for instance, if you become an industry leader, you're great in that industry. You have an amount of knowledge, a level of knowledge that no one else has. So then number 2, honesty and integrity. Honesty is probably one of the widely discussed topics in the leadership theory. Because in the leadership theory, any kind of leadership theory, it is still not clear whether 100% honesty is good or not. Now, if you want to lead, sometimes you have to motivate people. Sometimes you should be extremely honest to them because only being realistic and only being objective actually gets people somewhere. But for instance, if you say the chance of succeeding in a certain, let's say, field is very little, and all the people in your company, all the people that you're leading, they know about that and they're like, oh, now there's probably no way how we can succeed. Of course, their motivation drops and they will probably not work as hard as if you would tell them, I think it is achievable, we have to work hard, but it is achievable. So there's a massive difference between 100% honesty and everything that is not 100% honesty. So you can make up your own mind whether honesty is extremely important or whether sometimes you should lie. To be honest, and I always like to give you my personal opinion, I think that 100% honesty is not good. I think you should be as honest as possible, but sometimes a little lie is not a big problem. It actually helps the company. It helps your group to succeed. Because you probably know the situation, being, somewhere that you don't know. You don't know where you are, you don't know what you need to do, you don't know whether the situation is going to improve or not, but you have this sense, this kind of feeling that you can succeed. And this is also one of the traits that I think many great leaders have. They sense opportunity. They sense that not everything is lost. They sense that the group can still succeed. And sometimes they have to lie. For instance, before a great battle, let's think back a couple of 100 years, for instance, to the big wars in the United States, big wars in Europe. If someone, like let's say the general, would have told their soldiers, okay, we have a 99% chance of losing, then of course everyone would have turned around and would have run away. But if you tell them that if we work hard and if we fight smart, we're going to succeed, of course, they are much more likely to give their best, and there's still this 1% likelihood that they are gonna win. So honesty and integrity are extremely important. The number 3, intelligence. So being knowledgeable and intelligence in leading. So there's a massive difference between those two. The trait theory focuses on these two and basically says you have to be knowledgeable in the field that you're in, but you also have to have certain intelligence in leading. So you have to know how to lead. And there basically is one very important factor. And it is that knowledge alone will not make you a leader. But if you have intelligence in leading and you're knowledgeable, it is quite likely that you will become a leader. Then of course, number 4, confidence. And I know that many people struggle with their own confidence. And believe me, this is always one thing that I tell all of my students. Confidence is extremely important. Confidence made people leaders. Confidence made people presidents. Confidence made the world turn around. So what you have to think about is, how can I seem more confident even though I'm not? So you have to develop, first of all, intrinsic confidence. Confidence that is somewhere inside of you. But if you don't have that yet, you need to display it on the surface. Then number 5, job relevant knowledge. Of course, again, this is focusing on the 3rd trait again. It is very important that you know what you're doing. So then let's focus on the behavioral theory. And basically in the trait theory, we says what leaders are. We define the traits that leaders have. And now in the behavioral theory, we only look at what leaders do. So you don't have to be knowledgeable. You don't necessarily have to be confident. You don't necessarily have to have job relevant knowledge. All of that does not matter if you behave like a leader. And I think there's some truth about that too. It basically says that if you look like a leader, if you behave like a leader, and people think you're a leader, then aren't you a leader? Maybe. So the emphasis is on effective role behavior. You have to play the role of leader in order to be a leader. Everything else does not matter. So I think this theory actually lacks a couple of components. And these components are now in the so-called contingency theory, which I believe is the most accurate one. And first of all, let's remind ourselves of what the trait theory said. It said what leaders are. It basically described the traits. Then we got the behavioral theory, which defines what leaders do. And now the contingency theory says what leaders are, what they do, and where or when they are capable of doing it. So this is very important. This is now a combination of, I think, the trait theory, the behavioral theory, and also something more. So basically it says, all right, we look at the different traits. At the same time, we look at how these traits are, let's say, translated to the real world. How do the leaders behave? Do they behave like a leader? And then also, we look at where and when they're capable of doing it. When and where are they capable of being a leader? Because just because you are a leader in a certain situation doesn't mean that you're an all-around leader all the time. But in order to become a true leader, you have to adapt to situations. If, for instance, the situation is bad, and you still behave like a leader, and you lead people towards a common goal, then of course, you are a better leader than someone who just simply cannot handle difficult situations. So the contingency theory is in my mind the most accurate one, but it really depends on you. Please, when you watch this video, when you finished watching this video, please go into Udemy Q&A section and tell me which theory do you believe matches the most with your own, let's say, idea about leadership. Again, my personal opinion is that the contingency theory works the best. But if you favor, for instance, the behavioral theory, that's fine. If you favor the trait theory, that's fine as well. And if you're favoring the great man theory, that is of course fine as well. So if you want to download this infographic, just simply go into the resource section of this video. You can download for free at any given time. And afterwards, please go into the Udemy Q&A section and tell me which kind of leadership theory do you think applies the most to the 21st century. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see each other in the next video.